enhanced library and performance center, some of these smaller retail and residential blocks, boutique hotel there with some conference space, some retail on the ground floor, restaurant, the Civic Center stacked into 3 levels here, facing this axis of the town green, residential, and then police station at the northern end, and then space in here for expanded parking, but allowing for the oak groves and pathways and trails to extend through that area. The Huerta Gym would be relocated, and the uses that happen in the gym, some of those uses could be accommodated in this new cultural center, and some of the uses would be relocated to sort of a similar facility, so a gymnasium facility. Yep. Yeah, it's stacked. Yeah. Yeah, the question was, is the cultural center stacked? And yes, it would need to be. And this is just another view of that scheme, so you can see the town green here in the foreground with, here's the fountain on McClellan right here. The stage is here, and then the performance and cultural center there. City Hall and Civic Center there. Retail blocks. The boutique hotel, and these are very blocky models, so that needs to be said. These masses would be much more articulated, so there could be things, for example, here this 4th story could be set back with a roof terrace on top of the 3rd level. So I think there's ways that you can step back and sort of articulate the edges of these, so it's not, a 4-story wall, that it's something that's a little more scaled. So I think, these are very, very blocky. These are not meant to be the architecture.
The top,
yeah.
The top right is housing. What about the top left of the yellow? Is that also other housing?
This here, yes. And I think the more that we looked at this, that this wanted to be lower density, possibly just a narrow row of townhomes that face that street, whereas this one could be a little bit higher density because it looks across at something that is, 3 and 4 story in the Vintage Oaks development. This is the session 2 idea, and there's definitely some similarities here with, I think, with one big difference, which is the Civic Center is located all the way up at this point. So this would be something that would be very prominent on Old Redwood Highway and Windsor Road. It would still be within the Civic Center area and the Town Green area, but it would be pushed up to this northern point here. And so that's a notable difference with this scheme. There would be housing, again, in this area, similar to the other scheme, with a little bit higher density. These could be stacked flats here, whereas these could be, lower density townhomes here across from the single-family neighborhoods. This, again, similar treatment here of a sort of a parking area that is very accessible to the new uses and to the town green, but maintains the oaks and works around the oaks. This one moves a boutique hotel element to the center, but with the same kinds of retail space on the ground floor, a restaurant, perhaps a little, agricultural produce purveyor hall in the ground floor. This also has the combined performance and cultural center here and library, and then this is a mixed-use building with housing on top. And then what we're showing here is that there's retail space on the ground floor, but then workspace on the second floor. So those could be co-working space, for startup new young people with startup businesses, or it could be other kinds of office space. So that's 2 levels, and then there would be 2 levels of residential on top of that. So that is, again, a 4-story building, but we sort of crudely showed how that could be a stepped back edge here, similar to what I was talking about before. So it's not a full 4-story height. This is the rough model for that scheme. The police building is not in this scheme, so that's true. That's true of 2 of the schemes, and we've discussed that openly with the city officials and with the police department, and they are open to considering other sites. So yeah, there's.
I just, it was there and then it wasn't there.
Yeah, it's not there. Yeah, it's good catch. So this is, as I just described, this is the cultural center. This is the boutique hotel, placed more in the center of the town green, and then this is a smaller block with retail on the bottom, residential on top, and then these are residences back here, smaller scale along single family, a little bit larger scale across from Vintage Oaks, and then City Hall and city offices at the northern point, but still sort of a connection that runs through the whole thing. There's a little stream that runs through here, so the notion of having a greenway that can tie all this together and tie it to the town green is something that was important.
The odd-shaped green area between the 2 yellow blocks,
Yeah.
that we had decided would be a relocation of a huge community garden.
Yes.
So that people living there could have their own gardens.
Correct.
And, yeah.
Correct. So thanks for mentioning that. So in conjunction with this stream and greenway that runs through here, the notion of having community garden spaces that could be part of this sort of intergenerational living, so people had access to those gardens right near their home, and that all fits into this broader greenbelt system, I think was a really interesting idea that came up with this group. Yeah, that was in the first. I think that was actually common to all 3 schemes, so that really got some good traction. And then, okay, so then this is the isometric of that, so same elements, boutique hotel, residential on the end, cultural and performance center here, residential, and then city hall here, and then all this tied together with greenbelt and community gardens in this area, and a large zone here where parking could be supplemented to the parking that's already there to serve everything. These residences would park themselves. City Hall would park itself up here at the northern end, and so all of this parking would be for these uses and then for the for the overflow events parking. And then that's just another view of this one: cultural center, boutique hotel, residential, and then the other things to the
I
north.
have another question. The
Yeah.
left-hand side of the hotel, the red block underneath, no, to the left, underneath the yellow, yeah, where the retail is. We had talked about possibly having a open-aired market similar to the Oxbow market in Napa, where you could have local artisans and you could have local smaller wine tasting rooms for wineries that would want to have a presence on the green.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that this retail space could be large enough that it could accommodate an Oxbow-like program where different purveyors could come in, and that could include artists, could also include some eating space, similar to the way that the shed does it.
Could you go back a slide, please?
Yep.
That gives a better impression than the other drawings as far as it. I get a feel here, going all the way around the green. The green's going to be boxed in by 3- and 4-story buildings, just totally engulfed. And that impression doesn't come across in any other views, but it's a little worrisome to me.
Okay.
And the shadows, and where late in the afternoon,
Yeah.
and so on.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I think that there's sort of these goals that are sometimes competing, which is one goal, which is complete the green, and we've heard that again and again. The northern edge feels incomplete. There's no activity. There's no liveliness on that edge. So how do we complete the green, but then have this sufficiently perforated where it doesn't go all the way to feeling boxed in? So there's a fine line between complete and boxed in, and I think the earlier scheme that actually breaks that up more and has more of those perforations maybe takes it to the other side of the fence. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at and fine-tuned a little bit more to achieve the right balance. And then this was idea session 3, so this was just this morning. And this one, this was actually quite different again. Well, very similar in certain ways, but very different with the Civic Center again. The City Hall and city offices really got pushed around a lot. And this one puts it back here, sort of near where the school district offices are, but again connected through one of these penetrations that goes through from the town green up. So you could do a little promenade, a little greenway that goes up through there. There would still be parking, expanded here all the way around, perhaps even along here that can avoid the oak grove. So similar requirement to provide sufficient parking, and we need to test that still in a lot more detail when we get back, and we can spend time studying this carefully. But the Civic Center is there, and then the northern point is this this housing, this sort of mixed generational housing, is pushed all the way to the north point with some sort of a little community space. A yoga studio was mentioned, something that can serve these residents and perhaps serve some of the other residents in a kind of a prominent point. It's a little community gathering spot. The greenway flows through there. And then there were a similar idea about the performing arts and library here, similar with the boutique hotel here, and then similar with the housing co-work space and retail here. And then there was a variation on this scheme, and actually I don't have it depicted, but we did take photographs of it. It's just not in this presentation. But the variation says, let's take the library cultural center portion of this and let's move it to this site. So this was interesting. When you did that variation, the Performing Arts Center became sort of a sculptural element in the park. And the park could actually flow through to Old Redwood Highway, and then the performing arts venue could sit sort of in the middle of that. So that was kind of nice. Whether you can afford to give up that much more land for green space, because there's going to be parking and service needs and so forth, I think needs to be studied a little bit more carefully. But I thought that was a really interesting idea, that you give the town green a presence over here on Old Redwood. You have this beautiful performing arts thing sitting very prominently in the park with nothing attached to it. And then the library sits up here on this corner site, clear of the oak grove, and it's stacked. It might have to go to probably not 3-story, but it would certainly have to go to 2-story if it sat there. And so we looked at that in both ways, and I think they're both kind of good possibilities to look at. Then the Civic Center here went there, and there's a direct connection to go right back there as you go along the Oaks, and then the housing in the north. And then that's sort of the overall view of that one. And actually this one does show the separated library. So there it is there, and it just sits right at the end of this walkway that goes through the town green, and then that's And what this, what these wings are about on the performing